Holy shike, let's talk about pigs. Here's your host of the Pork Podcast, Jennifer Shike.
There's just something about the story behind the story. And as a storyteller, I'm always searching for ways to give readers just a little bit more. And that's what the Pork Podcast is all about, bringing you stories of the people and the progress of the pork industry. I'm Jennifer Shike. Let's go find just a little bit more. I'll admit it, I love a good love story, and I've been sharing stories all week on porkbusiness.com. Because this podcast is launching on Valentine's Day, I couldn't resist the opportunity to switch up my storytelling just a little to have a special focus on two romances that sparked in pig barns. Before we get started, I wanted to say a big thanks to United Animal Health for sponsoring this episode of the Pork Podcast. When I read my friend Jan Archer's email titled Love on the Lagoon, I literally spit out my coffee because I was laughing so hard. With that, I cannot wait to welcome my friend Jan and her husband Jack to the Pork Podcast today.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hey. Well, I cannot wait to hear about what Love on the Lagoon really means. So, Jan, can you please set the stage for how your love story began?
Jack and I both started working for DeKalb swine breeders in Plains, Kansas, which may not be the middle of the end of the world, but you can see the end of the world from there. But it was a place that had a lot of people that were fresh college graduates that were all working together. And Jack and I were working on the same farm. Jack was working in the breeding department. I was working in a nursery. And I was carpooling with another friend to get to and from the farm every day. And they had to stay late. So they asked Jack if he would drive me home, which he so did not want to do because his plan was to leave the farm and go scout duck hunting locations and checking out the lagoons for all the ducks. But that's how we met. And that's how we started talking to each other. And the rest is history. We're not the only couple that met in Plains, Kansas, Lothians many years ago. But it was a great starting place, and it was a great place to start our life together because we were really far from anything. We had to depend on each other. You know, nobody could run home if things weren't going well because home was a really far ways away.
Now, Jan, was this your first job when you were in Plains? Was that your first job, or how did your career in the pork industry start?
My first job was actually in Central America, and I worked with an organization that worked with Heifer International. People probably are familiar with Heifer International, and they will donate a goose or a cow. And I was working on a project that was improving tropical pasture systems, and came back to the United States and was going to work on a master's degree, and parents got sick and I needed a job and went to Plains, Kansas, of all places.
Well, Jack, how did you find your way to Plains? Was that one of your first jobs, or how did you get your start in Plains?
I was going to Morgan Community College in Colorado on swine management. And you go there for 6 months, and then you do an intern for 6 months, and then you go back. I learned more in a month at DeKalb swine breeders than I did the first 6 months. So I stayed at DeKalb and did not go back.
That's so awesome. I've heard Jan speak very highly of that experience. What were some of your favorite memories from when you were dating during that time, Jan? Can you remember any of your dates? Were all of your dates like kind of connected to the pig barn somehow, or did you get off the farm a little?
Oh, we absolutely got off the farm. Our idea of a hot night was to go check out prairie dog towns. Keep in mind, there's nothing in Plains, Kansas. So you really had to find your own fun. And the people were the best part. Of all the places we lived, leaving Plains was the only place I ever cried when we left because the people were phenomenal. But there wasn't a lot to do in Plains, Kansas. You played with the people that you worked with, and you made your own fun.
It sounds like, Jack, you spent a lot of time hunting. Was there good hunting in that part of the country?
Very good hunting. Very good hunting.
Now, did you ever get Jan to go hunting with you?
She did go with me when I went to shoot prairie dogs a couple times.
I love it. So I can just picture you two out there in prairie dog country. And so then things changed. So you guys, tell me, how did the wedding come about? Tell me about what was next for you after you guys kind of realized that you were the one for each other.
We got married in my home church in Marquette, Michigan, and we had people that drove from Plains, Kansas to be at our wedding, which was amazing because it's not close to anywhere. And we worked in Kansas for a couple more years, and then we were transferred to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And we worked there for 4 years, also in the pork industry. I worked on a farm, and Jack was servicing farms. And we moved from there to Asia, and we were there for several years. And then the island of Singapore, where we were living, kicked all the pigs off the island and said, and you pig people, you have to go too. They really took all the agriculture off of the island because it was a small island. They were reclaiming all the land for people. And at that time, we had a 1-year-old who had just had open heart surgery. And I just couldn't be an iffy ferry ride away from good medical care, or we would have gone with the pigs because the pigs went to Malaysia and China and we would have gone with them. But I really needed to get back where there was good medical care. So that's when we looked at the world. We were basically homeless. We could go anywhere. And there was real innovation happening in the pork industry in North Carolina. And so that's why we moved here and have been here for 37 years now. We had moved a lot. And when we moved to North Carolina, I said, this is it. We're unpacking all the boxes. This is going to be home. And it has been a wonderful home for us.
Your story is just incredible. I knew that you had been to several places, but I did not realize all the parts of that story there. Of all the places that you guys lived in and worked in, Jack, which has been your favorite place to raise pigs, and what was your favorite along that path besides where you're at now?
Probably the most favorite place was living in Singapore and working there.
It's hard for me to even imagine what was pig production like there compared to what pig production is like now.
It was really interesting. We raised pigs on elevated floors, and below the floors, we raised ducks, and below the ducks, we raised fish. So if you think market day for pigs is a challenge, imagine market day for ducks. And you're chasing them out from under the floors. That was entertaining. But it was great. Singapore is a very cosmopolitan island, and it was then. It was very modern, except for our little pocket where our farms were. So when you're in agriculture, you don't live near a big city. Usually, we never have. And that was kind of exciting. We were a bus ride from a very metropolitan, very modern city. And I went back to Singapore about 3 or 4 years ago with U.S. Meat Export Federation and got to look where our farms were. And it's high rises. They did exactly what they said they were going to do, which is reclaim that land for people.
I can't imagine how many important lessons that you guys learned in those early years of your marriage, being so far from family and friends in the United States. What was probably one of the most important lessons that you learned about marriage in those early years?
That you have to rely on each other. There's nowhere to escape to. If there's an issue, you have to figure it out.
What about you, Jack? What was one of the lessons you learned?
I was going to agree with Jan.
Really true.
Yeah.
So let's talk about why your story is so unique, because there's a lot of pork love stories out there. I don't think I realized. I mean, I guess I knew that maybe, but man, I was inundated with ideas when I started searching for pork love stories. So what do you think makes your pork love story so unique?
I don't know that it is unique. I know other people that have been through exactly the same thing. I think the thing that makes it unique, maybe compared to the way other relationships start, is when you get to know each other working on a farm, there's no artifice. You know exactly who that person is. There's no makeup. You shower in every day. I would dry my hair in front of a nursery heater. The person that you get to know is usually the real person. And I think that that's one of the reasons that the people that I know that met in these kind of circumstances, when working on farms, when being in agriculture, their marriages have lasted because there's no surprises. You work really hard together and you overcome challenges before you ever get married, and you see how other people react to challenges and to conflict. And I think that's really helpful when you're going into a marriage.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking about that too. Just the reality of what it's like to raise pigs is it's hard. There's a lot of hard stuff. And so when you can figure out how to work and do that together as a team, that's got to be an incredible foundation to build a marriage on. Jack, what do you think is your strength that you bring into your relationship? You know, when you think about your personality and Jan's personality, what's kind of your strength and how you guys function together? What do you think is Jan's strength in your marriage?
Well, her whole life is the passion that she puts into everything that she gets into.
There's probably never a dull moment with Jan. I'm just gonna guess. And Jan, what do you think is Jack's strength?
Jack is very even. He's very level. What you see right now is exactly what you get. And Jennifer, you know me. I do have strong passions and I get excited, and I need somebody that will ground me and help me reprioritize sometimes when I get really excited about something.
And that's a lot.
Well, I can relate because in our marriage, I'm married to a very like steady, brings me back to reality when I get kind of wound up about a few things. And so I can relate. I'm not too proud to say that I can be like that too. But while we're being honest with each other, I did want to ask you, you know, Jan, what is the most annoying thing that Jack does? Because I'm sure he's not perfect. So what's probably the thing that he does that drives you the craziest in your marriage?
I always tell people that the reason Jack married me is so he would never have to talk to anybody. And that is absolutely true. He will avoid talking to people at all costs. He loves being on his farm, and he would prefer it before employees get there. He could be a hermit and be perfectly happy and never ever have to talk to anybody.
Well, Jack, it's your turn. Do you care to retaliate? What do you think is the most annoying thing that your wife does?
My wife likes to talk, and it's hard to pull her away. I mean, we run into somebody and we're having she's having the conversation. It goes on, and I'm kind of standing there. It's about time to go, honey.
Do you ever go to trade shows with her?
I have.
I think that would probably be really hard to get through a trade show with Jan.
Yeah, because she knows everybody.
She knows everybody. Yeah.
We can go to any airport and she'll run into somebody she knows. Unlike me, I'm just
Who
a
will run
stranger.
away from them if he does know them.
Yeah. Well, I love that. You know, I have to transition now. I've got to make sure I squeeze this in. Every time I do the pork podcast, I like to use kind of remind myself that I'm a journalist here. And so I go find what other people have to say about you guys and try to get a little bit of background on you before we start. So I reached out to your good friend, longtime friend, Jim Flood, to see if he would spill a little bit of the tea on your relationship. And he said that he first met you guys back in 1978. And so he worked with you there in Kansas. And he said that Jan was definitely the aggressor pursuing Jack. Jan, do you think that's fair to say?
I don't know if that's fair to say or not, but it well may be. Just because, Jack didn't talk. So, just talking to him would probably appear more aggressive. I shudder to think what Jim Flood would say.
Well, I'm not done. I'm not done.
Oh, no.
So he says, Jack and Jan are quite different. She is outgoing and vivacious, a serial volunteer and flexible worker. Jack, on the other hand, is introverted and quiet, happy to be with his pigs or on a pond hunting waterfowl with his dog. Jack is asleep in bed by 8:30 and he's up at 4:30. And Jan, well, not really. Jan loves to be with people and she maintains a huge network of friends and acquaintances. And Jack is happy to sustain a few close ones. So, how do you guys think that your differences help make your marriage stronger?
I think we balance each other. As I say, Jack definitely levels me out. and I force him to not be a hermit completely.
Think that's
And
fair to say, Jack?
she's always working on that hermit thing.
Goals, right?
Yeah.
Well, and he also pointed out that you have very respectful, well-adjusted, and ambitious kids who love their parents and are doing an awesome job of raising their own families. And, I was thinking about that because those kinds of relationships with your children and with your larger family don't just happen. Those are things that are built over time and with a lot of hard work. And as you guys look back, what do you think is part of the key to a strong marriage in general? What advice might you have for other people that are maybe just getting started in marriage themselves? What do you think are some of those keys that they need to remember?
Patience is a good one. There's a lot
I think
in a marriage, there's a lot of give and take.
someone once told me that a marriage is not 50-50, it's 100 and 100, that both parties have to be giving 100%. And Jack and I are very different in our approaches to a lot of things, but our priorities are the same. Our family's always the top priority. And as farmers, one of the joys of being a farmer is being able to be with your children and work with your children and see that work ethic. Our son is in the pork industry. He's starting his life of service now. He's currently the new president of the North Carolina Pork Council. And I think having an opportunity to work with them has been one of the great joys of our life. Once a week, every week, Jack will go to our daughter's house because our daughter has children who are in preschool and younger. And they have Poppy Thursday every week where he goes and spends time with his grandchildren. And I think that pattern that started with our children is now extending to our grandchildren, and it's just been really wonderful.
Think that's so good. And um it's what makes life worthwhile, right? Being
Yep.
able to have those deep connections with your family. And how blessed are you to have a marriage that's lasted for so many years and has made such a positive impact on so many people. I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining us today on the Pork Podcast and being able to share a little bit of your love on the lagoon story with our listeners. It's been so much fun to kind of hear a little bit more about what your marriage looks like. I see professionally how successful that you both are in what you do, and it's really fun to see what is kind of at the foundation of it all, a strong marriage. And next up, we're going to dig into another marriage story with my friends Ethan and Emily Sidwell. We will be right back after this message from our sponsor.
At United Animal Health, we all share a love for animals. We have devoted our lives to agriculture and to the well-being and productivity of animals. With our guiding principle to always have the best answer, we listen to the animal and let the animal tell us what works and what doesn't. We know that if the animal is healthy and productive, so is the producer, the consumer, and our communities. Learn more at unitedanh.com.
Well, I'd like to interview my next guest, Ethan and Emily Sidwell of Pearl, Illinois, to tell us a little bit more about their relationship that you can easily say came to be because of the pork industry. Emily's story caught my attention right away because we share a lot of the same passions for Blackhawk College East Campus and the National Junior Swine Association. So let's dig into it. Emily, tell us how you met Ethan.
So I met Ethan in 2019. I was just finishing up my freshman year at Blackhawk College, was still serving on the junior board of directors for the National Junior Swine Association. And I was in the lookout of an internship opportunity. I knew that the Mash-Offs had a background in providing exhibit opportunities to youth. So I wanted to stay within Illinois. So I reached out to some contacts, was given a list, and just randomly picked the barn that Ethan had been working at. And so that's how we initially met. And I would say we started dating within a month of starting the internship.
Awesome. So there's a little internship love going on at the Mash-Offs then. Ethan, how long had you been working at the Mash-Offs?
It's been 5 years then.
Yep.
So
And what was your role there?
I was a section lead over the ESF, the electronic sow feeding portion of the barn, and maintenance. I guess I kind of did a little bit of everything in the farm at that time. I'd been there for a couple of years in that farm. It was a bigger site, so I guess a little bit of everything all over.
Sure. Well, I appreciated one of the comments that Emily had made when we talked before. She said there were a few times that you guys couldn't really have a date night in order to follow biosecurity protocols. And so I just have to applaud you guys for your dedication and prioritization of pig health. But I also think that it brings up a good point about dating challenges when you're working on a pig farm. So, Ethan, how did you make dating work with all the rules that you had to follow?
A lot of FaceTime was involved, I guess, because we couldn't see each other as much. And the biosecurity when she went back to college because of where she was going to shows and everything. So just FaceTime was a lot. And anytime we had a chance to be able to see each other, I would either, drive up there and see her. She would drive down. It was 3 hours. So there's, times where she'd be good, wasn't around no pigs or nothing. I could drive up there and see her for a night. I'd wake up at 1:00 in the morning and drive back down to the barn, be back at the barn in the morning. If it just meant seeing her for that night. It was better if we hadn't seen each other for a couple weeks. Worked out good.
Yeah. Well, that's fun. That's kind of a fun little side note to your love story there. But Emily, what happened next? Tell us about after you guys have been dating for a while and you go back to, you kind of get after your internship. What was the next step for you guys?
So we stayed in contact, especially during when judging season picked up, and he still continued working at the hog barn. So there was a lot of back and forth of just living a relationship over the phone and kind of that, I'd say, long distance, but it was just 3 hours. And then after COVID hit, I had the opportunity to go back down to where Ethan was staying there in Pike County, and decided to transfer onto Western after Blackhawk. And so with classes, it was kind of complicated, but almost everything was online. So we were able to pursue our relationship more. He proposed, he traded out my turquoise promise ring to a diamond ring in 2021. And then on New Year's Eve, we had gotten our marriage license sorted out and we're trying to do wedding planning, and nothing was really coming together just because my parents were in the transition of moving to Illinois and just trying to sort out some details. So we decided to just have an impromptu wedding on New Year's Eve. And one of Ethan's good friends was an officiant. And so that was just a really little intimate, nice wedding next to the Illinois River.
Well, how sweet. That's a great story. And, I always joke about good timing too. My husband and I got married in 2000, so he could remember how long we had been married easier. So I like the date that you chose because that's one you can't really forget too easy, can you?
No.
So, Ethan, talk to me a little bit about your career paths. It's pretty cool when you can be in a relationship with someone who understands what you're doing day in and day out and appreciates the value of your job. And likewise for you to understand what Emily does. But talk to me a little bit about how your career paths intertwined, not only throughout the time you were dating, but also now that you're in careers.
So I guess a big part of, when we first got together, I've seen her drive and her passion for the swine industry in general. And I guess, I don't know, I was maybe kind of comfortable in being just a section leader or a maintenance guy, and never really thought of being, a barn manager or moving up too much. And she kind of just, I don't know, she's a real positive person. She felt my work ethic was good and thought I was very knowledgeable and could do it. And she kind of actually pushed me in that position, to apply for that and actually go, to be a barn manager. It's a lot of stress. But she's always there for me no matter what. I can come home, have the roughest day, or I can call her and say, hey, I can't get the kids today. I got this going on. We always make it work. It's definitely a challenge for sure in its own ways, but it's definitely, and then the show pig side of it, I never knew nothing about show pigs. It was definitely, when we met, it was a big eye opener. I didn't know that was that serious, this being commercial. And this whole Pike County is nothing but really commercial here. So it was definitely an eye opener for me to see more of that side of it.
Well, talk to me a little bit about too, how did you get into the swine industry? What led you there? Did you grow up with pigs, or did you just see a job opening you thought you'd try for?
Well, my grandpa had dirt hogs when I was younger, some there. And then high school, there was a barn that wasn't far from my town. It was close. So I just started working there. I'd been to a farm with my brother some prior to that, just helping him on weekends and stuff. Just not a mash off farm, just another farmer's farm. And so I worked all through high school. In the summer, that's all I did was work at a barn. And every night after school, I would go work till 10 o'clock at night in a hog barn for pretty much all through high school. And then kind of just took off after that. And I seen mash offs and knew they're a good company to work for. So I took some time off and did some carpentry work and some other stuff. And then I just like, man, I really like pigs. Good job. Mash off's a good company to work for. So I applied and hired me right on. I kind of jumped around a little bit there in the beginning, farms and what I was doing and production and maintenance, and finally landed at Eastridge, and I was there for 5 years, and then jumped up to be a manager. Now I've been with them for 11 years. So
I love hearing everybody's stories of how they work their way up on the farm. There's just so many opportunities to grow and advance. And kudos to your wife for seeing those talents in you and encouraging you to do that. So, Emily, tell us a little bit about your job. What are you doing now that you're out of college and out in the real world?
So once I graduated, we actually had our son Easton, and I then applied and got the position as 4-H program coordinator, and I serve 5 counties here in West Central Illinois. So kind of from Beardstown down to Hardin are some of the counties and towns and areas that I cover. So coming from a 4-H background, showing pigs, it's really familiar. But I still just like the program itself, the 4-H program, it itself is remarkable in uniting a community, especially one that I wasn't familiar to. So I'm really fortunate for that.
Well, I know both of your careers definitely have a focus on not only animal agriculture and promoting that, but also on the importance of community. I know how important that is for the mash-offs too. And so how do you think that this mutual passion that you guys share has helped your marriage, or how has it impacted your relationship as a couple?
I would say it brought us together more so because it gave us opportunity to go out in the community, meet new people, especially for myself not being from this area, and get to network with like-minded individuals.
How about you, Ethan?
I feel the same. Like it's definitely helped us grow. Just too, and the fact that we both share the same passion, we can talk about it and not, I guess feel like we're on like a whole different page. We can actually understand each other and just helps us grow more.
I know there's a lot of people out there who obviously don't have jobs that really line up with what their spouse does. I mean, I think that's probably more common, but it is so nice to be able to have some of those things that kind of unite you together. And to your point, it's nice when you can talk about work a little bit and know that your spouse will have something that could actually help you the next day go back to work with a different perspective because they get what you do. So I think that's super neat. Now, I want to change up for just a little bit of honesty here for a bit. Nobody's perfect. We all have our irritating little habits. And so, Ethan, we're going to start with you here. What do you think is Emily's most irritating habit?
Man. Might not be good. Might not have a good supper tonight if I say too much, but I would say, I guess sometimes she can be picky. I guess if I try to help her out or do something, she has to have it done a certain way. And maybe I'm not doing exactly the way she does it, but it'll still be the same outcome. Man, she just got to have it done her way, her route. It's got to be her line. So I just step out of the way and let her do it, or try to help her, I guess, if I can.
I love that. I'm not even going to say, I'm not going to even comment on that. Except I can kind of relate with where Emily's coming from, and I bet my husband could relate to you, Ethan. Emily, your turn. What about Ethan? What irritates you about him at times?
Sometimes he cares way too much, whether that be about our family and about his career. Sometimes he just needs to learn to stop and smell the roses and be happy with what we have, because we've been very fortunate.
That was very nice. Now, I don't want to leave things on a bad note, because I want to make sure Ethan gets a good supper tonight and that you guys have a good evening together. So let's turn it to positive. But, in all seriousness, what do you guys appreciate most about each other? Ethan, I'll let you go first.
No, I really love how she always puts me and the kids first, no matter what. Like she's always worried, hey, do the kids have clothes? Do they have diapers? I mean, are they taken care of? It's always everybody else above her. It feels like, I mean, I have a lot of hobbies I like to do. I guess hunting takes up a lot. So I mean, she definitely watches the kids. I get to, she doesn't complain too much. I guess sometimes a little, but um, it definitely is nice having somebody like that in your life that I guess will help push you to and guide you in the right way. It's this kind-hearted and good person.
Very much. How about you, Emily?
I would say Ethan always knows to reach out and knows that communication's a key factor for our relationship. So he knows to check in and make sure to see where I'm at, where we're at as a family, and so we can kind of process some of those goals together.
It's definitely such a partnership, isn't it? There just can't be one person doing everything and somebody just receiving all the time. There's definitely give and take. And Leanne Trickle, who's one of your close friends, I reached out to her because I always like to find out what other people have to say about you guys, to make sure that it's all legit on here. And I do think so many of the things that she said echo what I'm hearing from you guys. But I wanted to share that she said Emily and Ethan are dear friends, and I believe that their marriage thrives because of the way that they work as a team to take care of their two sweet children. Even though they both have different backgrounds in the swine industry, that is still what brought them together. To me, it's the way that Ethan and Emily are able to balance work, family, and still get out and enjoy their social life is special. And I truly believe that that's the key to their success. And I guess I really appreciate that she brought up a good point at the end about still finding time to spend together. I remember older couples telling me when I first got married that you guys have got to find time to date your spouse. And I thought that was a little crazy at the time. And well, of course, I'll have time to date my spouse. But then those kids come and everything gets crazy. And I think it's really hard if we're being honest. And maybe I thought it was hard when they were little, but now that they're older and they have so many activities, I think it's just as hard because there's so many things going on with their kids. So, how do you guys find time with two kids to have a social life? And why do you think that's important and critical to your marriage? Emily, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I think that breaking the routine sometimes that we get into, either that's us taking different jobs for the kids, or even sometimes we put them to bed early and just play card games, just so we have some time together at the house and not just out and about. We're also very fortunate for our parents that watch the kids, so we can get out, and thankful for friends that plan things, so we can look forward to that time together and not just with our children, because 2 under 2 is sometimes stressful, and we get stuck in those routines.
Yeah, that's kind of an understatement. 2 under 2 is definitely stressful. Ethan, what do you think about that? What are some of the things that you think have helped you guys be able to find time to spend together as a couple and prioritize each other?
I would just say, like, there's definitely her parents, my parents, the all living up in her parents moving from Florida, Illinois definitely has helped out too a lot as far as watching the kids for us and be able to find time. I mean, even if we got to maybe try, staying up a little later Saturday, getting all the laundry done or something and getting stuff done. And then, like she said, the kids are napping. We might, play games or do something, just spend some quality time together on the weekend. Hey, can you call our, parents, say, can you watch kids for a couple hours? We're going to go do this, or, go do a movie or something, or just go out to eat. It definitely does help out a lot. Having them around, as my parents live fairly close to us as well. So it definitely helps out, I guess, juggling the kids and spending time together, just one-on-one time.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge blessing to have family close by for sure. And obviously, it's a blessing to them as well to get to spend time with your kids. So kind of a win for everybody, right? But I guess I wanted to end with, I was thinking about this too. I love animal agriculture, obviously. It's so important in my life, but it does not come without its challenges, does it? And so whether you're um, out in a barn and you have a purse break, or whether you're, working at a pig show and you have an animal get sick, or maybe one that just doesn't turn out like you thought after you put so much time into it. I mean, there's just different challenges at different scales and different levels. But I really think that being able to have a strong marriage to kind of ground you through the challenges of animal agriculture is very helpful. How do you as you guys look at your marriage and the things that you have learned so far, and I know that you're fairly newly married, but what do you think is the best advice that you could offer others when it comes to prioritizing and deepening your marriage? And Ethan, do you want to start?
Yeah, that's fine. I would say bring work home to an extent. Don't let your work overtake your home life, and your marriage would be one of my biggest things I could say. I'm probably one of the worst about doing this. Just some of the stuff I feel like she said, I don't ever just stop and smell the roses. I always want more. I guess I don't know. Maybe I just never am. I don't want to say I'm never happy. I'm happy with my life and my kids and where I'm at. I just always want more. I want to continue to grow within the mash. Also, I want to move to a bigger barn. I want to have more responsibilities. I want to see myself in my boss's shoes. In 10, 15 years, I'd like to be, up in the company, not necessarily being in the same barn every day. Maybe I go to barn to barn to barn like he does, have 5 barns in my portfolio, and have more responsibility, I guess. So I just continually want to push, and I want the best life for Emily and the kids. So I feel like if I can continue to grow just as a person and then work as well, then I'll give the best I can give for them.
That's a wonderful goal and an excellent reason to continue to find growth too. Emily, how about you?
I would say communication. We're very open with what is maybe on our mind because our jobs are stressful in different ways and yet are alike in certain aspects. To just let the other know what's going on, where our mind's at, and then communicate those goals to one another, both personally within our marriage and for our family, especially knowing that our kids, that we want them to be involved in the 4-H program, showing livestock themselves and what protocols we're going to have to take moving forward. We're just going to have to be open with each other and know that maybe not everything's possible. And so we have to be realistic, but also still push ourselves.
Well, I think that is some excellent advice for all of us to think about. I don't think we can ever have enough respect and communication in our marriages, for sure. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate the support of this episode's sponsor, United Animal Health, a global leader in health and early swine nutrition, helping producers optimize performance from day one. With a one-of-a-kind pathogen surveillance program, United doesn't just track threats, they keep you ahead of them. That's why United Animal Health says they are the name to know in pathogen research. Learn more at unitedanh.com. Again, Ethan and Emily, I am so grateful for your willingness to share your love story with us. You can dive into more of the Pork Podcast on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen to it anywhere podcasts are found. I'm Jennifer Scheich, finding the story behind the story.